As I walked out of the hospital, an old man stared at my necklace and said, "Young lady, you're pregnant, yet wearing the ashes of a stillborn child. Life for death. Your baby has been exchanged into someone else's womb." The necklace had been a gift from my best friend, Chloe, after her miscarriage. I hadn't wanted to wear it, but she insisted. That same morning, Chloe discovered she was pregnant again. While my previously healthy baby lost its heartbeat, a chill ran down my spine. At home, I instinctively wrapped the necklace around the belly of my pregnant black dog. There was indeed grayish powder inside, ashes. My mind raced. Chloe and I had gone to the hospital together. She left smiling. I stayed behind, devastated. As I exited, the old man, Mr. Keith, stopped me. "The moment you put on that necklace, a ritual began," he warned. "You must pass it to another pregnant woman before midnight, or both you and your baby will die." Desperate, I asked if there was another way. He said, "No." Then he added, "Do not alert the target," and left his number. It was 5 p.m. I had 7 hours. Still in disbelief, I returned home only to hear moaning from the study. Chloe's voice laughing. She looked so broken leaving the hospital. I couldn't stop laughing, she said. Harold, my husband, replied, "Once the ritual's done, that lump of flesh will fall out." My world collapsed. I left quietly and returned to an old apartment I owned before marriage. There, the black dog stared at me with an eerily human glare. Suddenly, I realized Mr. Keith never said the recipient had to be human. I fed the dog, wrapped the ashes necklace around its belly, and locked it in the cage. Just then, Harold arrived carrying bags of food. "I made soup for you," he said, acting kind. The dog, who never liked him, suddenly rubbed against him affectionately. His face darkened when he saw the necklace. "Why is Chloe's gift on the dog?" he asked coldly. I faked a smile and said I was filming a viral clip. Harold took the necklace and placed it back around my neck. I felt suffocated. Later, I caught him on the phone. "She can't take it off," he told Chloe. "She'll sleep through the ritual. When she's gone, everything will be ours." Tears streamed down my face. I waited until he slept, drugged the dog with leftovers, and retied the necklace around it. At 11:55 p.m., I called Mr. Keith and told him the dog began to bleed black. My belly shrank. My baby had survived. "You must come now, Mr. Keith said. The child is still cursed." I rushed out only for Chloe to appear, ramming her car into a fence and attacking me. I barely escaped in a taxi and made it to Mr. Keith's place. Then Chloe sent a picture. She had gutted the dog. My stomach cramped. I didn't know if I was bleeding or simply terrified. Harold began calling nonstop. Then came a message, a photo of the gate to Mr. Keith's house. "I found you," he wrote. "I'm coming up." A knock on the door. "Honey, open the door." The knocks were calm, too calm, slow, rhythmic, as if Harold already knew I was on the other side, as if he was savoring my fear. Mr. Keith's hands didn't stop moving. He lit the final candle and placed a blood-red talisman at the center of the 8 trigrams formation. "Don't open it," he said without looking at me. "He can't hurt you if you stay inside. The protection is almost complete." "But he's right outside," I whispered, panicked. My phone buzzed again. Hold's message. "If you don't open this door, I'll break it down. And when I do, it's over for you and your cursed brat." I wanted to scream. My hands were shaking, my stomach still cramping from the trauma, and tears blurred my vision. "Mr. Keith, please. He's not bluffing. He'll kill me." Mr. Keith looked up then, his eyes glowing eerily in the candlelight. "He can't cross the line unless you invite him in. The ash curse only binds you if you act with guilt or fear. Stand your ground, Raina." I stared at the door. Harold's shadow shifted behind the frosted glass. He whispered in that sickly sweet tone he always used when manipulating me. "Honey, open up. You're not safe with that crazy old man. Let me help you. I'll take you to a real doctor." I backed away. Suddenly, bang. A loud thud against the door. Another. And another. The old frame shuddered, but held. I have to reinforce the seal, mister. Keith muttered. Sit there. Don't move. And whatever you do, don't let him trick you into stepping outside. As he scrolled symbols along the windows and floorboards with salt and wax, I sank into the corner of the room, clutching my belly. My baby kicked again, weak but alive. Then came another message from Chloe.
It was always supposed to be me.
I was meant to be the mother.
You stole that from me.
You stole Harold. You stole everything. A photo followed. My wedding ring snapped in two, sitting in a pool of what looked like blood. I gagged. But then Mr. Keith spoke again, his voice firmer. The baby's spirit is resisting. That's good, but your connection is damaged. We'll need more than ritual. We need truth, memory. Do you still have something of your mother's? My mom. I blinked. She died when I was little.
I have her locket on my keychain. Perfect.
He took it and placed it in the center of the diagram. Your mother's blessing may be the only anchor strong enough to protect your child's soul from Chloe's interference. I was about to ask what he meant, but then crack. The front door's frame split. A voice rang out. Not Harold's, not Chloe's, but something inhuman. A low growl echoed from the hallway, followed by a screech that made the flames on the candles tremble. Mister. Keith's head snapped toward the door. She brought something with her.
What is that?
He didn't answer. Instead, he pushed a dagger into my hand. Small, silver, engraved with old characters I couldn't read. If the door breaks, he whispered, stab the necklace. Don't hesitate. It'll hurt, but it may be the only way to sever the bond for good. Before I could respond, the door burst open. And what stood there wasn't Harold. Not anymore. The thing in the doorway wore Harold's face, but it wasn't him. Its skin was too pale, stretched taut over sharp cheekbones. Its eyes were completely black, soulless voids that glinted with a hunger no human had. And when it opened its mouth to speak, the voice that came out was a grotesque mockery of Harold's, layered, echoing, as though something ancient was speaking through him. You've made this difficult, Raina. All you had to do was wear the necklace. Mr. Keith stood protectively in front of me, arms outstretched. You cannot cross the boundary. Leave this house, shadow spun. The creature chuckled. Your words are weak, old man. Her blood is still bound. The child is marked. It belongs to us now. A scream clawed at my throat, but I couldn't make a sound. My heart thundered as the necklace around my neck began to burn, ice cold, as if frostbitten. The silver gourd shook, and I could hear whispers inside it. Children's voices crying, laughing, screaming. I clutched my belly. My baby twisted violently inside me. No, I cried. You can't take my child. The creature snarled and stepped forward, just 1 foot. The candles along the 8 trigram circle flared up, and a bolt of energy struck the creature in the chest. It staggered back, howling, and for just a moment, Harold's real face flickered underneath. Tears streamed down my face. Mr. Keith, what is that thing? Something Chloe summoned, he said grimly. She didn't just steal your child's life energy. She offered it to something else. Something she couldn't control. Now, it wants both of you. I turned to the dagger in my hand. You said if it broke through, I should stab the necklace. Yes, mister. Keith said. But it will come at a cost. I didn't care. The creature lunged, shattering the boundary with a deafening crack. I screamed and drove the dagger into the Ash's necklace. The silver gourd exploded with a flash of blinding white light. Everything went silent. The world faded to black. When I opened my eyes, I was on the floor soaked in sweat. The candles had gone out. The dagger was gone. The necklace lay shattered beside me. Nothing left but gray dust and a few shards of metal. Mister. Keith was slumped against the wall, unconscious but breathing. But most importantly, my belly was still moving. My baby was still alive. I sobbed in relief, trembling from head to toe, until I heard a sound behind me. A knock 3 times. I turned my head. It was Chloe, and she was smiling. Chloe stood in the broken doorway, soaked in rain, streaks of dried blood on her arms and the hem of her dress. But it was her smile that froze my blood. Wide, gleaming, wrong. She stepped over Harold's unconscious or possibly lifeless body, her heels clicking softly on the wooden floor. "You always were dramatic, Raina," she purred, brushing damp hair from her face. "Stabbing the necklace? Really? Do you think that breaks the bond?" "Mister." Keith stirred behind me with a weak groan. Chloe barely glanced at him. "I told you she wouldn't make it easy," she muttered mostly to herself. "You always were selfish. You had everything. Harold, the house, the baby." My voice came out cracked. "You tried to kill me." She tilted her head. "Correction. I tried to take back what should have been mine." Her gaze dropped to my belly. "And I still might." I moved backward on instinct, pressing a hand protectively over the swell of my stomach. "The ritual is broken. The necklace is destroyed."
Chloe laughed.
Not a light laugh, but a deep, bitter sound full of hatred. "Oh, Raina, the necklace was just the vessel. The curse doesn't end with silver and ash. The bond is blood. You wore it. You accepted it. You nourished it inside you. Your baby carries death now." I shook my head. "No," Mr. Keith said. "Mr. Keith is a relic," she snapped. "He's a dying man clinging to old symbols."
"But me?"
Her smile returned. "I've evolved." Suddenly, she reached into her coat pocket and tossed something toward me. It landed with a soft thud on the floor. A bundle of fur-soaked and lifeless. The black dog. Its eyes were missing. Its mouth had been sewn shut with red thread.
"Why?"
I whispered, my throat burning. "Because it took your place in the ritual," she hissed. "You thought you were clever, but that dog was mine. You sent it to die in your place, and now the curse demands retribution." I stood, legs trembling, as Mr. Keith finally managed to rise. "Get away from her, Chloe," he rasped. "Your pact with the Shadow Host is incomplete. You've already broken half the covenant." Chloe's eyes darkened, something ancient flashing beneath her pupils. "Then I'll complete it with her child." Everything happened at once. Chloe lunged. Mr. Keith shouted. I grabbed the broken dagger hilt and swung. It slashed across Chloe's arm. Her scream tore through the room. Unnatural, layered, a sound no human throat should make. She staggered back, clutching her arm, her flesh burning where the blade touched. "You're marked now, Ray," she spat. "You'll never be safe again. Even if you run, it'll find you." Then she vanished.
Literally.
One blink, and she was gone. A shadow melting into the air. I collapsed to my knees, clutching the hilt. My belly kicked once, stronger than before. Mr. Keith knelt beside me. "The child still has a chance," he whispered. "But Chloe's not finished. And neither is the thing she serves." I looked down at the ashes smeared on my hands. My tears fell silently. "I'll protect this baby," I said, voice cold. "Even if it kills me." The next morning brought no comfort. Mr. Keith and I sat in silence as the first gray light filtered through the cracked blinds of his kitchen. My body felt like a hollow shell, my thoughts trapped between panic and a strange burning clarity. "She's not human anymore, is she?" I finally asked. Mr. Keith didn't answer right away. Instead, he carefully unrolled a yellowed scroll across the table, symbols scrolled in ancient ink, some still glowing faintly.
"No," he said.
"She offered part of her soul to the unseen host, an entity that grants power in exchange for legacy. That means bloodlines. She gave it your child's essence in return for fertility. A life for a womb. But my baby is still alive," I insisted, gripping the edge of the table. I severed the bond. I stabbed the necklace. That should have ended it. Keith shook his head slowly. "You shattered the link, but the promise remains. A contract made in blood doesn't vanish with metal and bone. She's still bound to you. And worse so is the host." He pointed at the scroll. There, drawn with haunting precision, was the image of a baby inside a womb, its eyes open, staring. Beneath it, curling in dark ink, were 4 words in Latin. Sanguinem tenter, donic solvent. The blood is held until it is released. I swallowed hard. Then what do? You run. You hide. You protect the child until birth. If you can carry it to term without another binding, the contract will weaken. But until then, Chloe will try again, and she won't come alone. We packed quickly. Keith gave me a new charm, an obsidian amulet etched with protective runes, and told me never to take it off no matter what. He also handed me a thin leather journal. Write everything down. The host feeds on confusion. Memory is your shield. Before we left, I checked my messages. There were none. No calls from Harold. No texts from Chloe. But in my voicemail was one message. A recording of a child crying. And beneath the sound, whispering voices repeated a phrase again and again. You should have died instead. My hands trembled as I deleted it. We drove all day and into the night, heading north toward a cabin Keith knew in the mountains, a place supposedly untouched by the host's energy. But just as we reached the first checkpoint road, the car stalled, the GPS glitched, and in the woods, something moved. Mister. Keith's hand went to the hilt of a blade he kept strapped to his leg. Don't leave the car. But I had already looked out the window. Standing among the trees, a child, no more than 7, pale skin, hollow eyes, and around her neck, a new silver gourd. The child didn't blink. She stood among the frost-covered branches like a doll left in the woods, unmoving, untouched by the cold. Her white dress fluttered in the wind, but her feet, bare and blue, didn't shift. Mr. Keith swore under his breath and reached for the salted powder in the glove compartment. She's not real, he hissed. Not in the way you're thinking. The host sends echoes, things stitched together from grief and memory. But she's wearing it, I whispered. The necklace, the silver gourd. My chest tightened. Had Chloe made another one, or had it remade itself? The girl took one step closer than another. Her head tilted as if listening to a voice we couldn't hear. Then she raised her hand and pointed not at Keith but at me, and she smiled. Raina, she called softly. Mommy says, come home. Daddy's worried. We can play now. Mr. Keith threw the salt across the windshield. Instantly, the glass fogged up, hiding the child from view, but not before I saw something that made my breath catch. Her eyes. They were mine. Drive, I choked. I don't care if the car stalled.
Drive.
Keith didn't hesitate. He muttered something in a language I didn't know and threw a charm onto the dashboard. The engine sputtered, coughed, and roared back to life. As the car jerked forward, I turned and looked back. The girl hadn't moved, but lining the tree trunks behind her were more figures. Men, women, children, all wearing silver gourds around their necks. Dozens of them, silent, waiting. Keith drove in silence for the next hour. I couldn't stop shaking. Finally, we reached the mountain cabin. It was small, built from thick logs, and smelled of cedar and ash. Keith checked every window and door with iron nails and holy oil. When satisfied, he turned to me. You saw her eyes, didn't you? I nodded. She's your unborn child's reflection, he said grimly. A future that's been marked. The host is trying to shape what's inside you. If it succeeds, your baby won't be born human. I collapsed into the chair beside the cold fireplace. So, what do? I whispered. How do I stop it from becoming that? Keith knelt before me and placed his hand gently over my stomach. You fight harder than Chloe ever imagined. You reclaim your bloodline, and most importantly, his gaze locked with mine. You name the child now. I blinked. What names are protection? Names are identity. If you give the baby a name from your heart, the host will have less power over what it becomes. I thought of my mother, of the softness of her voice, the warmth I'd nearly forgotten. And then quietly I said, Elara, if it's a girl, I'll name her Era. The candles flickered. The air in the cabin warmed. Keith smiled. Then, all it is. But just as I allowed myself that first fragile breath of hope, there was a knock at the door and a voice I hadn't heard since the day of the hospital. Sweetheart, it's Harold. Please, let's talk. The knock was soft. Familiar, sweetheart. It's me, Harold. I froze. Keith stood instantly, motioning for me to stay behind the protective circle he had etched around the fireplace. He approached the door slowly, silently, mouthing a chant as he palmed a rusted iron dagger. I could barely breathe. That voice, so warm, so normal. If I hadn't seen Harold's face twisted by that thing days ago, I might have believed it was really him. I know you're scared, Harold continued gently from outside. I know Chloe hurt you, but she's gone now. She made a mistake. Let me take you home. You're not safe out here with that old man. My fingers dug into the arm of the chair. The baby stirred in my womb again, tense, uneasy. Keith whispered, "It's not him. Or rather, it's what's left of him." "Raina," the voice called again, more urgent. "I brought your favorite ginger tea and almond cookies just like when we first met." I remember it was true. Harold used to bring them every Thursday. That detail hit me so hard I almost stood up, but then tap 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 the sound of metal on wood. Keith pulled me back into focus. "It's trying to get you to invite it in. The host can't cross a threshold sealed by willing blood. But if you speak to it, if you let emotion override reason," he didn't finish. Outside, the voice dropped lower, darker. "You ungrateful witch. I gave you everything. I chose you. And you side with that muttering lunatic instead." I flinched. "That child in your belly, it's not yours anymore. It's mine. And Chloe's. We paid the price. You were just the carrier, the vessel. And once the clock strikes midnight on the blood moon, it's ours by right." Keith looked out the peephole and muttered a curse. "It's gaining form. If it draws enough of your fear, it can materialize fully, and then it can break in." "I'm not afraid," I lied through my teeth.
Boom.
The door shuddered violently. Keith raised his dagger and shouted in a language older than fire. A white-hot line of light scorched across the wooden floor. The door stopped shaking. Then silence. I collapsed to my knees, breath ragged. My phone vibrated in my coat pocket. One new text. "Unknown number. The blood moon rises in 2 nights. Prepare the cradle, mother." Attached was a photo. An empty nursery. But it wasn't mine. It was the one Chloe and I decorated together before all of this. The one that was supposed to be mine. Pink stars, silver moons, the name painted on the wall in blood. I dropped the phone. Keith knelt beside me, face pale. "They're accelerating the ritual. You naming the child threw them off balance, but now they're forcing the timeline. What happens on the blood moon?" I asked, voice breaking. He didn't answer for a long time. Then softly, "That's when the host is strongest. If they succeed in taking the child, it will be born in both worlds, human and other." I looked down at my belly, trembling. "I won't let that happen." "I know," Keith said. "Which is why tomorrow we summon your mother." The wind outside howled like a warning as Keith drew a circle of crushed moonstone and rosemary on the floor. The cabin was colder now, every shadow deeper, every corner darker. Time seemed to slow as midnight approached. I sat in the center of the circle, clutching my mother's old locket in my trembling hands. "Why my mother?" I asked. "She's been gone for over 20 years. Keith's eyes didn't leave the salt line as he replied. "Because the host thrives on broken lineages and forgotten names. But your mother's love, her unfulfilled protection, is still tied to you. If we can reach her spirit, she can sever the host's grip on your womb from the other side." He placed a copper bowl filled with river water and strands of my hair in front of me. Then he added one final item, a single red-threaded baby shoe. It was mine. "This will be painful," he warned. "Spirits connected by blood don't always return in the form we remember. And if your grief outweighs your will, she won't come through. Something else will." I nodded. He began the chant. The wind stopped. The fire dimmed. Then the locket grew warm in my hands. At first, it was faint, a soft scent of lavender, the way her hugs always smelled. Then the air shimmered. A golden thread snaked from the locket and hovered above the bowl. My vision blurred, and suddenly she was there. She looked as I remembered. Kind eyes, dark hair and loose waves, a faint dimple when she smiled. But her eyes were filled with tears. "Raina," she whispered. "My brave girl." I sobbed. I missed you so much. I'm scared. I know. Her hand reached toward my face, though it never quite touched. They want to use your grief as a gate. You must not give it to them. You must close it. Can you help me protect Era? At the sound of the name, the thread between us sparked. My mother nodded. I can give her my blessing, but only if you truly choose to keep her, no matter what she becomes. That choice must be yours. Behind me, Keith murmured a final chant. Then the flames around the circle turned blue. My mother placed her hand over my belly and whispered words I couldn't understand, but my child did. Era kicked once, then settled into a peaceful stillness I hadn't felt in weeks. But before my mother faded, her voice turned sharp. She's coming tonight, Chloe. She's no longer trying to take the child. She's coming to birth it herself.
What?
She plans to tear the host through you. Use your body as a final gate. Stop her, or everything ends. Then she vanished. The candles went out. Keith collapsed. And outside, the howl returned. Only this time, it was coming from Chloe. The cabin trembled under the weight of her scream. Not a human scream, but one that sounded like it had erupted from every womb, every stillbirth, every cursed cradle throughout history. Chloe was no longer hiding in shadows. She had come to deliver. I rushed to Keith, who lay barely conscious, blood trickling from his nose. The ritual had drained him. Ray, he croaked the gate. She's trying to force it through your spine. Through pain, through terror, she's bypassing the old rules. A jolt of agony pierced my back, so sharp I nearly blacked out. I collapsed to my knees, clutching my belly. Era thrashed inside me like she was trying to escape. A voice echoed through the cabin walls. Chloe's layered now with the host's inhuman tone. You were never meant to be a mother, Raina. You're weak. You cling to love like a fool. But me, I'm worthy. I'm chosen. I'll bring her through, and she will be mine. Keith forced himself up, gripping my shoulders. We don't have time. We need to perform a counter-ritual. We'll bind the host inside Chloe and seal the gate, but you have to lure her inside the circle. I looked at the faint outline on the floor, the remnants of the summoning circle where I had just spoken with my mother. It wasn't strong enough. She'll know it's a trap. Keith opened his blooded palm and let it drip onto the circle. She'll feel your grief. Use it. A second scream erupted outside.
Closer now.
Windows cracked. I stood barely able to keep balance and limped to the doorway. Then I opened it. There she was. Chloe, barefoot, feral, skin stretched tight over bones, belly grotesquely distended, as if she were carrying something not of this world. Her eyes had no pupils, only endless white. Come in, I said, stepping aside. She paused, lips curling. So eager to die. No, I whispered, eager to meet the woman who betrayed me and still thinks I fear her. She entered. The moment she stepped into the circle, Keith shouted the first incantation. Chloe shrieked, her body convulsing as the sigils reignited. You think this will stop me? I am the vessel. I am. You're a thief. I shouted louder than I ever had. You stole my necklace, my child's heartbeat, my husband, my trust. But you won't steal her name. The moment I screamed, Alara, the cabin shook and the locket around my neck burned bright. A gust of wind burst from within me, knocking Chloe backward. Her belly ripped open, but not with blood, with smoke. The host poured out, its shadow form, trying to claw free of the circle. Keith grunted, slamming his palm to the ground. Now, Raina, I raised the obsidian amulet he gave me and threw it into the center of the circle. The sigils blazed. Chloe let out a final terrible wail, and the host screamed with her, dragged screaming into a spiral of fire and ash that collapsed into the floorboards like a dying star. Silence. Smoke curled through the cracks. Chloe's body hit the floor with a sickening thud. I collapsed beside her, gasping. It was over. Or so I thought. Then a small, pale hand emerged from Chloe's torn belly, and a child's voice whispered, Mama. The room stood frozen. From Chloe's torn body, a small form began to emerge. Not monstrous, not grotesque, just fragile. A child, pale, delicate, soaked in dark fluid, yet unmistakably human. She opened her eyes, and they were mine. Keith moved toward her instinctively, dagger still drawn, but I blocked him with my arm. "No," I said, voice steady. "She's not the host. Not anymore." "But she came through Chloe," he warned, breath ragged. "There's no precedent for this, Raina. This could be a trap." I shook my head. My heart knew. She was Alara. The curse had twisted.
Yes.
The ritual was corrupted.
Yes.
But I had named her. I had fought for her. She was born of blood, pain, and defiance. The child reached for me. "Mama," she said again, quieter this time, afraid. I picked her up. Despite the blood, despite the horror, despite every rule Keith had ever etched into salt, she was warm. She breathed. And the moment she touched my skin, a golden light flared from the locket at my chest. My mother's voice, faint, distant, echoed in my mind. "You chose love over fear. The line is yours again." Keith staggered back, tears in his tired eyes. "You did it," he whispered. "You broke the chain." Outside, the clouds parted. The blood moon faded into the first light of dawn. The curse was undone. We burned Chloe's remains that morning with prayers and salt, binding her soul from ever returning. Harold's body was never found. Only ash and twisted iron, as if the host had devoured even his name. Era slept peacefully against my chest, small fingers curled around the torn edge of my coat. Keith and I left the mountains later that week. He returned to his temple. I returned to a quiet town by the sea. No more circles, no more runes, just lullabies, soft winds, and a girl with old eyes who sometimes spoke to birds. She asks about the woman in her dreams, the one with pale skin and bleeding stars. I tell her the truth that some people are born from pain, but it's the choices we make that define who we become. She always nods because even at 5 years old, Era already understands something most adults never will. The strongest magic is choosing to stay human.